This may be a shorter version of the chatter for this week, but because when I look at the chart, let's bring up a chart real quick and look at it. This is Monday. I went through the whole month, which I do every month, and write out those kinds of aspects that are speaking to me and possibly might be of interest to you. We begin this week. It's a shift week. We're shifting from September into October. Uh, we'll get more into that in a little bit. But this week begins with a first quarter or waxing quarter moon out of bounds because it's up here between Sagittarius and um, Aquarius. First quarter moon, a crisis in action, and it's up there in the sign of Capricorn where this takes place. So you might want to wonder into Capricornian kind of considerations. Who in this Capricorn dance that, we're looking at here might be considered to be in a position, a diplomatic position, because we're in the season of Libra, but an executive diplomatic position, crisis in action. Couldn't you, can you, do you sense that there could be perhaps more than a modicum of crisis that is taking place in the executive function of, let's just say, the US government? If you're paying attention, and I'm sure a lot of you are, you have to wonder why is it or how is it that we've gotten to this place where we're at, where democracy is in challenge. It's being challenged by a very small group. I was thinking about this the other day. Uh, there's a term that fits in with the capitalist scenario. It's laissez-faire. And laissez-faire, when I looked it up, means a lot of different things. But the one phrase that, kind of resonates or sticks, somewhere back there in my consciousness is let the buyer beware. And my suspicion is that the capitalist system, this is money we're talking about here, has been hijacked by a few, with the bottom line being that laissez-faire, let the buyer beware. As I contemplated this just a little bit deeper, I thought, capitalism itself is not the problem, but what consciousness is driving the capitalist engine? How much conscience has been hijacked by a few in the use of a capitalist system that really doesn't inure to the general benefit of the population? Just some things to think about there. It's not that the capitalist system or the capacity to utilize resources effectively to benefit the most would not be out of the question if it weren't for the conscience hijacking by some to say that the portion of economics that I require really has no relevance on anybody else. I want it all. Does that sound perhaps a tone of resonance with that executive branch of the current administration here in the US? I mean, of all the presidents that we've ever had, there's always been a checks and balances to keep them, to keep us all moving forward theoretically in alignment. But this current administration, you know, that is, it's making money hand over fist for itself, not to the endearment of the general population. Oh, not even close. The ramifications at the global level of what's taking place. I didn't really want to get into this political, quasi-political, I think probably is more clearly the expression of what's going on right now. But it's so in your face now. And this first quarter moon crisis in action here in the Capricorn or executive realm. What is the leadership like? It doesn't, there are other versions of Capricorn that have a lot more character quality to them. Another term for Capricorn, the wise elder. Can you see that in our current administration? Hmm. Think on that, will you? A patriarch, a father figure, an advisor. Oh, what kind of advice are we getting from our executive branch these days? Anyway, this week starts out with that out of bounds moon, unpredictability, a quality of Uranian, shake things up kind of process underway as we, debate, as we yeah, I think debates are required. And that brings up the subject of free speech, which, if you're paying attention, is trying to be clamped down upon, squelched, if you will, at every chance that it can through this current administration. I have to turn the page. I don't want to dwell upon that. It's just that it's just so much, you know, heart-wrenching to live into what is going on here in the US and globally right now. When I looked at the aspects for this week, I had only one aspect. I went, wow, this week doesn't have a lot of things. And this aspect is this Mercury and this Jupiter, rulers of Sagittarius and Gemini, also Virgo and Pisces. On Wednesday, October arrives. October arrives. And here we are. Mercury at 22 degrees of Libra, Jupiter at 22 degrees of Cancer. That's square. Let's take a quick look at the Sabian symbols for Mercury. Chanticleer's voice heralds sunrise. I get up every morning. Most mornings I'll make a smoothie and go out and sit in my gazebo and watch as the day begins. And I've been seeing the sun glancing its reflection off of the Puget Sound up to me, and each time I do it, it's just a little further south. The keynote to this, a creative and joyous response to the life process. And I feel that each morning as I get up. We're in the season of Libra. What is Libra? Libra is the experience of otherness. You know, we all have a Libra part in us. It may not be as, you know, in your face for each of us, but it's there. We all have it, and we're in the season of Libra, and the other and how we play that equation is up right now. And I'm going to just, dive a little bit deeper into otherness. There is the outer other, there is the inner other, because other is that experience of comparing notes with those along your pathway to discover, the larger or outer version of what the other is bringing to us, so that the inner other self, we are complicated beings, and that inner other requires that interaction with the outer other as we try to ferret out an appropriate direction that we need to follow as we do this life dance, not just with others, but with all the parts of ourselves, which is, that same version that I'm saying to you right now. We all have Libra in us in some fashion. We're in the Libra season. So the experience of how we engage with others is to the fore. Are you paying attention? And this is Mercury that I'm talking about for this particular aspect. In square, a challenging aspect, that is asking us dig a little deeper. And it's Jupiter, which is exalted in Cancer. And what the Sabian symbol for Jupiter to add into this equation as a consideration is the meeting of a literary society. And the keynote, an objective and critical approach to the common factors in our culture and to its psychological problems. Mercury, what are you thinking about? Jupiter, is there a capacity within what you're thinking about that has a growth potential? That's Jupiter. And when you put that in the realm of society and what's going on right now, can you feel that tension between the largeness of the potential Jupiterian version of what's potential? I mean, what's possible, and Mercury's capacity to, think and communicate into that cauldron of potential that sits there awaiting for us to stir it and see what comes up to the surface right now. There's tension in the air. We're in the season of Libra, that version of how we engage with one another. It's up. This is the main aspect for this week, is that square between Mercury and Jupiter. Something to meditate upon. had so many thoughts of the significance of Libra for each of us. You know, a Taurus person still has a Libra within them. And, their Taurus and Libra both are ruled by the same planet, Venus. But a Taurus is about possessions. Venus, Libra has the leaning more to the artistic side of life. And so, right now, with the sun in Libra, we have to ask ourselves, from that Taurian perspective, I'm just grabbing a sign out of the hat here, is to, are my possessions, you know, really intriguing to my artistic side? We could go grab another side to a Sagittarius, what's the bigger picture of the world? You know, we have to go from a Libra part within our Sagittarian side of this equation. That Jupiter, ruler of Sagittarius, squared to that Mercury up there in Libra, is asking us, you know, am I communicating effectively enough with whatever level of other I am considering, whether it's outer or inner, that I'm going to allow my heart to grow with what comes up? It won't always necessarily be easy. There's that square between Mercury and Jupiter, but it's a challenge that, if from the Sagittarian perspective, that who is it that I'm engaging with? And is it going to be beneficial to the larger perspective that I have? Am I attracting others who are going to inspire me? Now, I could go to every sign as a potential and give a version of that things, but you get the gist. Right now, our Libra function is being tickled in different fashions, and each of us needs to tune into that. This is not solo time. This is a time of potential togetherness where no comparison is on the table. And, just for a little extra gee whiz, this behind me is a really, really detailed picture of, you guessed it, that's Mercury. And in order to get a picture like this, the position of the camera had to be toward the sun to get the enlightenment of that side of the body. You can kind of see it's got an awful lot of pock marks on it. So the gravity of the sun pulling things toward it, and Mercury being the closest planet to that ball of, attraction. Mercury gets pummeled on a regular basis by a lot of stuff heading into the sun. Anyway, I just thought I'd share with you that dynamic vision of what Mercury looks like, since that is the one of the main planets this week is being brought to you by. That's all I'm going to have for this week. Uh, you know, Remember, tune into the Libra, both the outer and the inner aspect of otherness, and see, you know, who am I? And who is it that's being attracted into my sphere of influence to have conversations with? And are we both going to be able to grow from the interchange that we inspire within each other? That's all I got for this week. See you all next week.